The U.S. Coast Guard works by the creed Semper Paratus, which means always ready. Hi, I'm Sarah Edwards.
And I'm Barry Nolan. Welcome to EveningMagazine, where we're usually always ready to bring you a couple of good stories. Tonight we're down at the U.S. Coast Guard Support Center in Boston on Pier 2, where the men of the Coast Guard have been making the waters safer for sailors for some time now.
That's right, Barry, and one of the lesser-known ways they are doing that is by buoy tending. In our second story, we'll go aboard the Coast Guard cutter Bittersweet to find out about the difficult and often dangerous task of tending the buoys, and we'll see how it keeps our waterways safe. Well, if you thought buoys were those little objects bobbing in the water, you're in for a surprise. We're about to see the mammoth-sized buoys that mark our waterways and the Coast Guard personnel that have the difficult job of maintaining them. Tending the buoys when we continue. Missions and overall patrolling has another vital function that the public rarely hears about, maintaining the buoy system. And that doesn't mean just checking the small buoys you'll see bobbing about, but also the giant buoys that mark the waterways for larger vessels. And tonight we're going aboard the Bittersweet here at Woods Hole Coast Guard Base to go on a special buoy tending mission to find out why it's the roughest and most dangerous of all Coast Guard operations. Since before the days of the clipper ships, mariners have needed all the help they could get to find their way safely through New England's treacherous waters. Shipwrecks claimed hundreds of lives a year at times, so a system of navigation was designed for all U.S. waterways. Just like a road map tells travelers on land where to go, a navigational chart tells sailors how to get where they want to go. By following marker buoys described in the chart, mariners can find their way as well as stay out of trouble. There are all kinds of buoys, each one telling something different about itself, a sort of signpost of the waterways. Making sure these buoys are where they're supposed to be is the job of the United States Coast Guard, and the cutter Bittersweet, with her crew of 54, is in charge of 136 buoys from Newburyport, Massachusetts to Watch Hill, Rhode Island. Today's mission takes us to buoy number 26, not far from Woods Hole. A buoy this size costs $15,000 to replace, and the Coast Guard would like to see it last a long time. So every 2 years, each buoy is hauled out, cleaned, and inspected. As the crew of the Bittersweet hoists number 26 aboard, each one of them is aware that one wrong move could bring this 9-ton buoy right down on top of them. And if the 150-foot anchor chain slips, the buoy could slide overboard, taking a few crewmen with it. The man in charge of this huge operation is Captain Charles Bell. The men look like construction workers out there with their hard hats on. This work is pretty rough, right?
Yes, it is. And when we put in a full day, a lot of times we'll work for 2 and 3 days, 24 hours a day, in order to get our schedule together, having lost days to weather, not being able to work with bad weather. So it's a very fatiguing job.
What kind of dangers are involved with this work?
The aids to navigation mission, that is always dangerous as far as the men working in and under around heavy weights, tons of steel and concrete coming over the side of the ship where the ship is rocking and rolling in the seaway.
Excuse me, I understand you have one of the most important jobs up there. What are you doing?
Just checking out the daylight controls and the changing all the bulbs, checking the voltage on the batteries, make sure it's not too low.
What kind of things are you looking for when you're cleaning up the buoy?
Well, basically anything that'll like eat the paint, because it causes rust. This one's, kind of fairly close to shore, so there's not really much growth on it. If you get out really far, there's all kinds of really wild things growing on it. Sea life,
Now, Now, to give you an idea of the size of the equipment we're dealing with, this is a battery from a lighted buoy. It stands 5 feet, weighs 512 pounds. Not your typical flashlight battery, is it? And the light has to last for up to 2 years. For instance, if the light goes out and it's marking a shallow area or a rock, it could spell disaster for an approaching ship. How important is this job?
Well, I think it's very important because of the all the shipping today, and everybody's worried about the oil pollution. If a tanker would go aground because the buoy was off station, you'd have a major oil spill and an environmental disaster.
In a heavy storm in December of 1976, the oil tanker Argo Merchant ran aground off Nantucket Island. Because of her exceptional seaworthiness, the Bittersweet was sent to pump out the Argo Merchant's cargo of oil. Although a real environmental disaster was narrowly averted, the need to keep shipping lanes clearly marked was made frighteningly clear. Let's get a mark.
Good luck, 50-20.
To make sure these crucial markers are where they're supposed to be, careful sightings are made to determine the precise position for replacing the buoy.
On the right, 36-48.
Ensign Linda Johansson coordinates the replacement procedure. It requires good seamanship and timing, and when everything's set, the buoy's 6-ton concrete sinker is released.
13.
On the right, 36-48. On the right, 35-33.
You're there.
Let go of the sinker. Set the buoy. Chief, you spent 6 years on the buoy tender. At the end of the day, do you feel a certain sense of satisfaction about the job?
You see traffic moving well, and there's nothing in the news, you know, for a long time about accidents and such as that with marine traffic. You feel that you've done your job fairly well.
Thanks to the Bittersweet, buoy 26 is safely back in position. And during the dead of winter, this ship will take on additional duties, having to break the ice around the Vineyard Sound and Nantucket area in its continuing efforts to keep our waterways safe.